Yesterday's hearing was just as much about the battle between the Democrats and the Republicans as it was Kavanaugh and Ford.
Yeah, lawmakers on both sides trading jabs over the way that this nomination is being handled.
And this morning we're joined by two of our political analysts, Rick Keller, Whitney Boan. Both of them are attorneys. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate you guys so much.
Good morning.
You bet.
All right, so we want to first talk about how things went down yesterday. And obviously, starting with you, Whitney, it was a test of who do you believe. How do you think they both did?
Well, I think that Dr. Ford was believable. I think she was credible in terms of the way she remembered the incident, the amount of emotion she experienced about it, the trauma that it was in her life. I don't think that there was anything done to discredit her in the hearing. I think that she sounded credible. Judge Kavanaugh, on the other hand, I think that he sounded more like a politician than a federal judge. I don't know whether or not he did the things he's accused of doing to Dr. Ford. I don't presume to know something that is uncorroborated and I wasn't present for. However, I do think the way that he conducted himself in the hearing as far as being evasive, especially with Democratic senators questioning, was not becoming of a federal judge and not becoming of someone who would serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. And again, I do think some of his answers were evasive, especially as it related to issues about whether or not he drinks to excess and basically what he drank and who he drank with, and I found it to be a little bit odd and not that credible.
Thank you. Rick, I want to go to you. What did you think? Because there were a lot of people who said they listened to both sides, and after listening to both of them, they thought, oh gosh, they both sound credible.
Well, there are two things that stood out for me. Number one, Lindsey Graham. I think he was a game changer. I think that at the time he spoke, the prosecutor they hired hadn't done that great a job, hadn't cut through all the BS, and he did it really quick, essentially saying they've had this info all along. They're trying to sandbag the guy, and now they want FBI stuff, not because they want it for their vote. They just want it to delay to get more Democrat controls in Congress. I thought he did awesome.
All right, Rick, you brought it up, so let's listen to it real quick, and then I'll have you guys both sound off. Here's Lindsey Graham.
Interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade.
All right, Rick, so you felt this was a game changer. Whitney, I'm curious, what did you think?
I think that Senator Graham sounded very much like he doesn't understand the dynamics of rape and sexual assault, and especially as it relates to it being a crime of opportunity. However, what also didn't seem to be understood throughout the hearing, and there was an insensitivity to, in my opinion, by several of the senators as well as Judge Kavanaugh at times, is that just because you have had a lot of women in your life who you've worked with and who like you and who you were respectable to doesn't mean that you didn't commit an act of sexual assault. That's the baseline, that you should be respectable to women in your professional career. That should be what we expect. So the fact that he had countless women writing letters for him saying that he was always professional to them and that he treated them well doesn't negate whether or not he acted in a manner consistent with what Dr. Ford described. And that seemed to be something that Senator Graham and some of the other senators didn't seem to understand as far as that dynamic.
All right, I want to talk about the alcohol, because that also came up quite a bit. And he had an exchange with Senator Klobuchar about alcohol. She mentioned in there that her dad was an alcoholic. Let's go ahead and listen to that.
And when you drank so much that you couldn't remember what happened or part of what happened the night before?
No, I remember what happened, and I think you've probably had beers, Senator, and so
you're saying there's never been a case where you drank so much that you didn't remember what happened the night before or part of what happened?
You're asking about, yeah, blackout. I don't know. Have you?
Could you answer the question, Judge? That's not happened. Is that your answer?
Yeah, and I'm curious if you have.
All right. right, Rick. So that was probably maybe one of the most awkward moments, I think, of the day. He later came back and apologized for that. What were your thoughts there when that was happening?
It was a little too feisty. Look, they both had different styles. We had Dr. Ford was very calm and polite and seemed sincere. He seemed sincere too, but it was in a ticked off, angry way about asking if you've ever had a beer or why'd you write this in your yearbook and that sort of thing. And I think he showed his frustration a little bit with that interchange with the senator. Probably should, and came back and apologized for it.
Yeah, he did. And Whitney, you know, one of the things we heard a lot of the pundits say after all of this, after watching all of this, they thought that, is this guy going to be level-headed and cool and calm if he does end up on the Supreme Court? Your thoughts there?
That's my concern as well. I can tell you, having appeared in front of federal judges here in Orlando and other places as well, this behavior that Judge Kavanaugh demonstrated at this hearing in terms of becoming a party to and sinking to the level of bipartisan showmanship and accusing the left of a conspiracy out to attack him, and just the way he came back at the senators who were asking him questions he didn't like, it was not consistent with what you would expect out of a federal judge, much less a U.S. Supreme Court justice who is above the politics regardless of their personal beliefs and who is charged with being basically impartial to all of that and following the law. So I was not very impressed with the way he responded to the questions by that senator regarding his drinking and attacking back at her. That's not appropriate for a federal judge, much less a U.S. Supreme Court justice.
All right. Whitney Boan, I wish I had time to give you a last word, Rick, but unfortunately we're out of time. I want to thank both of you, Rick Keller, Whitney Boan, both attorneys here in town, and we certainly appreciate your expertise this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right.